All right, well, hello and welcome to this training refresher video over CCH Axcess Tax Client Collaboration. This video is essentially just created as a refresher and reminder to some of the things that you learned in your training session. And what we're going to look at today is going to be covered here as far as the topics of discussion. Some of the things we're going to look at are going to be things such as how do I just get into client collaboration? So we'll start with that. Then we'll move into talking about marking clients as client collaboration enabled. We'll also take a look at the process of creating requests and managing them as somewhat of an overview. And then we'll move into looking at what you can do if you're not seeing any action on a request. We'll also have a reminder over things like doing e-sign for business returns, as well as looking at the CCH Axcess document integration process. And then we'll kind of conclude with a few resources, some help options that you have available to you, as well as some of the additional training options that you can get signed up for. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about before we get too far into the content of all of the things that we're going to discuss today are these here, the training materials that were provided to you with your course. And you can access these in a number of ways. One is the scheduling email that was sent to you. It has the links to the training guides for the courses that you enrolled in on that email. But just in case you don't have access to those anymore, I've included some links here on screen, which will take you to where you can go to download the PDF file. And so there's one for the end user guide, and there's also one for the best practices guide. Now, what we're going to primarily be discussing here is going to revolve largely around the end user content, but we will refer to some things that you would have learned in the best practices session as well. So, um, so just when you click these links, that's going to start the download of a zip file, and in that zip file will be your PDF. And this is the PDF that will be downloaded. We're currently looking at the end user training guide, but what I really want to draw your attention to here, if we scroll down a little ways, is the table of contents. And this table of contents is going to jump you to exactly whatever kind of topic it is related to client collaboration that you're wanting to learn about. Ultimately, this training guide covers everything that you would have talked about in your training session. It will even talk about the things that we're going to talk about today. So definitely hold on to this, as this will probably be your best resource for reminders and refreshers and things like that. This guide, this video guide that I'm doing right now, is largely just to supplement all of the other resources that you have and just give you a quick way of bringing you up to speed on some key points. But this guide here will go into depth on everything. It has step-by-step instructions, full explanations on many things. So definitely hold on to this one as a great resource to get into. So I have that up here on screen. Just make sure to pause the video here if you need to enter this link into your browser, and then you can go out there and download that zip file. So now let's actually get into the content. And you can see here that I have opened up the dashboard here in CCH Axcess. And the first thing that we're going to discuss is how do I even get into client collaboration? Well, under clients here on screen, you can see that I have client collaboration. And when I click this, as you might recall from training, just know that this is just a link, right? So if I click on client collaboration, that's going to open up client collaboration in my browser. And I do have to log in again. So the login process will start just by essentially logging in with your same CCH Axcess credentials. And so I'll go ahead and log in. Just remember that I can type this CAPTCHA that appears in mixed case. I can type that in all lowercase if I prefer. I'll go ahead and log in. And I'm immediately taken to what we call the request dashboard. So this is kind of your landing page in client collaboration. And it is, as a reminder, a shared view of all of the requests in your firm, right? So I can see all of the requests that I have access to see here, right? So any requests that other people have sent, these are not just my own requests. Now, um, ultimately, right now, what I'm looking at are my current year requests. We're going to talk about how later you can send future year requests. And I'm looking at individual requests when I come out here. So the next thing that I want to talk about here is something that's primarily used when creating multiple requests at one time. So I'm going to click on the Create Multiple button. And I just really wanted to remind you of your ability here with the return group option to select this and filter by client collaboration user. So that should have been something that was set up um, in your initial training for the best practices is this client collaboration filter. And this is something that we can apply to our clients to be able to mark them as using client collaboration or not. I'll show you that here in just a minute. But the reason that I'm bringing your attention to this is something that we get asked often for is how can I generate a list of clients that I don't have emails for? Well, you can use this create multiple as a way of doing that, right? We don't actually need to send any requests right now, but what I'm going to do is just go to the last page of this after marking client collaboration enabled there. And the last page of this will show you a list of your clients, right? And it will show you emails here. So I can see I have taxpayer and spouse emails here, but for Charles Barkley up here, you can see I do not have any email addresses. So you can use this as a list of determining which clients do I need to reach out to and secure an email address for so that I can send them a request in client collaboration. Now, where you go to actually create that marker of client collaboration enabled is on your dashboard, we can go under firm and click on lists. Now, if I click on lists here, I get this window. And what I want to focus your attention to here is under tax lists, I can click on return groups. And it's here that you can see I have client collaboration user entered. Now, if you don't have that there, just go ahead and type that client collaboration user, right? And press enter, and that will add it for you. Now, after you have that, what can we do with it? So under clients again, we're not going to click client collaboration this time, but we're going to click on client manager. And what I'm going to do here, and this is important, I'm going to filter by one type of client. As you can see, I'm already filtered by individual, but we need to filter by one type of client. The reason for that is that I can apply this to multiple clients, that marker that we just created, to multiple clients all at one time, but only if they're the same client type. Now I can do it individually just by opening up a client. Let's say, let's go with Jane Doe here. I can do this individually by marking client collaboration user here inside of Jane's client profile. I could click save and close and apply that marker. But it's much more efficient if we filter by individual or whichever type of system we're working with. And then if you click one of these, you can hold shift and click all the way to the bottom and select multiple clients all at once. In fact, you can even do that for multiple pages if you have multiple pages worth of clients. But what I'm going to do then is with all of those selected, I'm going to click update multiple and say all selected. From here, I can come over to the return group dropdown, and for all of these clients in one fell swoop, I can just mark client collaboration user, click continue, and this will apply that marker to all of my clients. Now, you would really only want to do this to all of your clients if you plan on sending this to the vast majority of your clients. Then what you could do if you want to go back through and deselect some clients is, well, I can come up here and clear my selection. And then I might come back through after applying that to everyone, that marker, I might come back to those that I think are not going to be using client collaboration. So let's say Santa here and maybe, I don't know, Michael Jordan. So With those two selected, I could do the same thing, update multiple all selected. And this time, instead of marking client collaboration user, I would just mark default or something else, right? I'll go with default. So that would kind of remove that marker from these two clients here. So now I've returned us back to the request dashboard. And ultimately, like I was saying earlier, this is kind of our landing page in client collaboration. And I'm quickly just going to talk about creating requests. So we somewhat kind of saw that one place that you can go to do that with create multiple. But if we click the drop down, we can click on creating a single request, which is probably not primarily how you'll go about sending out requests and creating requests, but it's good for one-off situations. Whereas creating multiple is better for doing things in large quantities or batches, right? So I'm going to click create single, which gives me this slide out window here. And the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the tax year dropdown. So it's here that I can select either 2023 or 2024. If I create a 2024 request, which you can do right now, and this was recorded in today's date is it's early November right now when this was recorded. So as of now, I can only send a future year request that contains an engagement letter. You'll notice if I try to send an organizer, I'm blocked from doing so. So it doesn't let me do that right now. But eventually we will be able to send that. And come 2024, we'll not only be able to send the 2024 request, but we'll also be able to send a prior year request as well. So that is going to be new this year. But one thing that I want to also point out is right now I'm clicked on individual. I can change that to whichever other type of request that I want to send. But again, right now, when we're sending a 2024 request, the only thing we can do is send a engagement letter for the future year, right? Let's change this back to a current year for 2023, and we'll actually go through kind of filling this out. I'm going to send one of these here to Jane. And when you see, as soon as I click Jane there, and what this is doing is scanning my client manager list of clients that I have. So Jane is also listed here in client manager. And back here in client collaboration, what you'll notice is that it automatically pulls in the email addresses from Jane's client profile, right? Now I can edit these here if I'd like to. I can click edit client users and I can update these email addresses, right? I could change these, right? I can click edit client user here and I could use a different email address. But what you'll notice is client collaboration is going to have a set of preferences. And those preferences are largely going to be based on a couple of things. One is inside of Jane's client profile, if I have multiple emails listed for Jane, so I've opened up Jane's client profile. If I come down to the address and phone section, you'll see I have a number of different emails entered here. Now, what client collaboration is going to prefer is whatever you've set as the primary. However, if you haven't set a primary, it will prefer the home email address that's entered for both the taxpayer and the spouse. So I could make the modifications to the emails here if I'd like, or I could just do these modifications in client collaboration itself. And the changes that I make here in client collaboration, these do in fact get pushed back out to client manager in CCH Axcess. So either way you want to update the emails, you have options, but just know that these two things do stay in sync. Now that's just for the taxpayer and spouse though, because you will see that I can link in another user if I wanted to. But this linking of somebody that's not a taxpayer or spouse, this is just going to be something that's stored in client collaboration. It's not actually associated to the client profile in Access. Now it will stay from one year to the next, but if I want to link in another user, all I need to do is enter that other user's email address and name and just kind of enter a title for who they are, right? Maybe it's a wealth manager or a parent or guardian, right? Well, I can make those selections here and then choose if this person is a signer or not, right? Primary signer, secondary signer, or not a signer at all. Now, when we link in somebody else other than a taxpayer and spouse onto a request, they would be able to essentially see and do everything that the taxpayer and spouse would. That would include uploading documents, attaching or filling out the organizer, or even going into the document locker and exchanging files there. However, as far as signing, they wouldn't be able to sign unless we marked them as a signer, right? So just as a reminder, you might just want to make sure that you're aware that if you link somebody else in, that they can essentially see everything that the taxpayer and spouse can, as far as messages, as far as files that get uploaded, the organizer, even the completed return. So that is the first portion of creating a request, is just deciding who we're going to send it to and making sure that we've entered correct emails. If not, updating those. The next portion here says, what do you want to send to your client? And we have options to either send the engagement letter, the organizer, just one of those things, right? Or in fact, we could even send neither of those things. And why would you want to send a request that uses neither? Well, the reason would be if you just wanted to give them access to the document locker. If you recall, the document locker is just a space where you can go and securely exchange files between you and your clients. And if we send neither the engagement letter or organizer, the only thing that they would be able to do is essentially just log in and go and upload files into that document locker, which would give them a nice secure place of doing that. And then later on, if we wanted to, we could still send the engagement letter and or organizer. But we, ultimately, I'm just trying to point out that this does not prevent you from later sending an engagement letter or organizer. And it doesn't use up a separate request or anything like that. It would essentially just kind of be the one client for the year, right? So ultimately here, if I do want to send an engagement letter, I'm going to mark this as yes. Then I'm going to select my template, and I'm going to go with my Walker accounting template for the engagement letter. And I'm going to set a due date of this as, oh, I don't know, how about Friday the 22nd, right? And maybe the real date, the true kind of final date for me to get this would maybe be like the 29th or maybe the 6th, right? And the reason I'm setting that early is, if you'll recall, notification emails are sent as we lead up to this date, but they're also sent for a little while after. Uh, and if we still want the client to be able to go out and do things, so we don't want to set this to be as a hard and fast drop dead due date, right? Where if you get to this date, it's too late. So they do get reminder emails even after the due date, to where they can still go out and take action and get us the documents that we need. So ultimately, I'm just going to set this to be a little bit earlier than what I really truly want it by. But that's going to give me the option. That's going to give the client a little bit of a cushion to be able to react in case they missed this email, or maybe we mistyped the email and we need to resend it or update their email and resend it or anything like that. So I'll set that due date for the 22nd, and we'll set this one for December 31st for the organizer. And so that leads us to talking about the organizer. The first thing I need to do here is select the return version that we're working with. I'm going to go with the version 1 because that's the only option I have in this case for this client. But if you have multiple versions, just make sure you're selecting the one that was filed last year, right? Or the one that's most up to date, which probably would be the one that's filed. But we're going to make sure that we've selected the correct version here. And in selecting a prior year return version, what it does is it requests specific documents on their document request list. So the client, as part of the organizer, not only has a questionnaire, but also has a document request list where they'll attach all of their work papers. And so if in the prior year return, the client had a W-2 or a K-1 or, a 1099, anything like that, then when they get this organizer, their document request list will be requesting the same 1099, K1, or W2 that they had in the last year, right? So very specifically by name, it would be requesting that document. So it would say, W2 from Apple or Microsoft or whatever, right? So very specific request for documentation based on what was in the prior year return. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is you can send requests to clients that don't have prior year data. In fact, if you have a client that's new, what you would see when you go to select this dropdown is no prior year data available. And so we still can send it to them, but we're going to want to include something, and that is this document request list template that's called the new blank organizer. You get this new blank organizer out of the box, and if we click edit this template, this will show us what it's requesting. So it's going to request the client uploads a copy of last year's return, W-2s, 1099s, K-1s, mortgage statements, all that good stuff, right? So it's going to request all of those documents that we might need from a new client. Of course, you can customize this yourself and add things to it. But I'm just going to go with the stock new blank organizer for this client. Now, this is just going to, ultimately these bottom two boxes here are just things that we can attach in addition to what the client is going to be receiving as standard, right? So every client receives the same standard organizer, but we do have the option of including things that will go to their document request list, like this new blank organizer. So because this is asking for things like a copy of last year's return and W-2s, right, we wouldn't want to provide this to somebody that did already have prior year data. So I'm going to remove it, right? We already have the prior year return, right? We prepared it. And we also, it's already going to be asking very specifically for their W-2 from Apple, for example. So we don't want it to just generically ask for W-2s a second time, right? A second spot to upload a W-2 or something like that, right? So only include this new blank organizer if the client does not have prior year data. Now, as far as the questionnaire, we can include custom questions if we want. It just adds a special section for them to answer those custom questions. All of your clients are going to receive kind of the same standard questionnaire portion of their organizer, but if we want to include some custom questions that we've created in addition to the standard organizer questions, then we can, right? We can't modify the standard organizer questions, but we can include some custom. Okay. So once you have this all filled out the way that you like it, you can go ahead and either send later or send now. And my best practice recommendation is to send later. That gives somebody the opportunity to come back in here and review and make sure that we've entered the correct email addresses, that we've selected the right template that we want to use for the client, and also that we've selected the correct prior year return version, all of these things. So it gives the ability for somebody to come and review those. If we click send later, it holds it in ready to send, and somebody can come in there and take a look at those. If we send now, that will fire it off immediately and move it into client progress status. Okay, so that is kind of the process of filling out a request. The next thing we're going to look at here is a few of the requests that I have that clients are currently working on, and that would be any of these that are in client progress status. So if I click on this, there's a number of things that I can see, such as if they've logged in or not, if they've signed their engagement letter, how far along on the questions they are, and also the how far along they are in attaching the files that have been requested of them. And the one thing that I really want to draw your attention to here first is the login progress, right? I get asked often, what do we do for those clients that we're not seeing any login activity out of? What can we do? Well, the first thing that I would recommend doing is just resend the invitation, right? So if we click on the actions button here, the three little dots, we can resend that invitation, and that would trigger another email to the client. Maybe they just overlooked it. So we can resend that and they will hopefully see it this time and take action on it. But if we're still not seeing login progress after attempting that, one thing we can also do is access the client users here. We could come in and update these email addresses if we needed to, right? We can click on the actions button to edit the client user here, and that will let us edit those email addresses, maybe enter a new one. And after we've edited it, we would want to then resend that invitation. And hopefully that will jog on a little bit of activity out of our client. So, perhaps it's possible that we look at this and just see that it's been misspelled, so we could fix that and resend it. But if everything is still looking, still looks right, it seems like we have the right email, we might want to contact the client and make sure that we do have the correct email. Then we might modify this email address here with the new one that they provide to us. Maybe they don't have access to this one anymore or just don't use it. So we can update that and then resend the invitation. The other thing we can do here is we can see that they've signed the engagement letter, so we could go ahead and download that. And you do also have the ability to push that engagement letter into CCH Axcess document. We're going to look at this a little bit more later as well when it comes to providing the return to the client. But you do have the ability here to push this into their document folder and or portal. So this is the document integration, CCH Axcess document. The other thing that we can do here is we can see how far along on the questions they are if we just hover our mouse over this. So I can see Jake is at 4 out of 5, whereas the others are complete. And here we can see that Jake is at 12 out of 37 documents having been uploaded. But if I click on this wheel here for Jake, I can go in there and I can take a quick look at where Jake is at with things. And so if I expand this down, here are the W-2s and 1099s and things like that that existed on the prior year return. And the reason I know they exist on the prior year return is because I'm not seeing an asterisk next to these. If you'll recall, one thing that I probably pointed out in training, or whoever did your training should have pointed out, is the asterisk, right? Anything with an asterisk next to it is because something it's being triggered to upload this document here because the client answered in a certain way on the questions, right? So the questionnaire portion of the organizer. And so here, this client, Jake, must have said that, yes, I did sell some virtual currencies. And so documents are being requested, right? So Jake can upload those. Or if Jake handed us that document, perhaps we just come over to the 3 little dot actions button and we say firm has on file. We can actually do this on our side. We're on our side right now, even though this looks like exactly what the client will see, with the exception of they won't have an edit or delete button, but they will have an upload button just like we do, and a button to respond with no longer applicable or any of these items here. So if we need to, we can edit things, right? If I have a certain form name I want to request of the client, I could add that line item in and type it, right? Just as it was there before. Maybe there's a certain form name that I want them to attach. So I can request that there and click save. Or I can modify the text or delete things if they're no longer relevant and I just don't want to cause confusion or whatever, right? But we can also even attach things on behalf of the client. Like, if the client handed us this W-2 and we want to keep it all nice and tidy together, well, we can come into that client's document request list, just as I've done here, and attach it for them. And they'll be able to download and see that on their side. So that's just a little bit about working with the document locker, or sorry, the document request list. The other thing that we'll take a look at here is essentially, what do I do if I have a client that does not click the send to my accountant button, right? In the case of John Smith here, we can see that John has done everything, attached the engagement letter, answered the questions, attached all of the documents that were requested. So things are looking great here for John, but John just needs to click send to my accountant. And what if he doesn't? What if he forgets or just didn't know he should or whatever? Right? Well, not to worry. We do have the option here to click on the 3 little dot actions button and just close that request. And remember, that's not the same as deleting the request. Closing the request just simply makes it so that the client can't answer the questionnaire anymore, but they could still attach documents, which for Wayne here, the 3rd person down on our list, this might be a really viable option, because as we can see, Wayne has signed the engagement letter, answered all the questions, and now just needs to attach some documents, right? Just one, in fact. So Wayne's attached everything except for one item here in the additional items section, as we can see, 8 out of 9. So if I click on that, I can come in here and see oh, it looks like it's just a K1, right? Maybe he's waiting on a late K1, but we want to get to work on this return. So for both of these clients, both Jonathan and Wayne, what I would recommend doing here is just close that request, right? That will move it into the next status, return ready to start. And like I said, it does not stop them from uploading documents if they still need to. So I'll go ahead and close that request for Jonathan, and we can go ahead and close the request for Wayne as well. So that moves them into the next status, return ready to start. And so when I have stuff here, it's either because I've closed the request or the client has clicked send to my accountant. So it's good that we have stuff here. This means we're ready to start working on these returns. And so what I would do is just go ahead and click on the download tax documents for both of these. That's going to move it out of this status and into the next. It also starts a zip folder download, as you can see up here in the top right. So I don't have any more in return ready to start. That's because they're now here in return in progress, indicating I'm now working on these. I've downloaded the files and I am working on the return. So it's at this stage here where ultimately if Wayne does come and upload a that K1 that comes in late, you can see this little green colored status here, return in progress. If in this status, Wayne uploads that document, that K1 that we were waiting on, it's going to come here to the matching green colored missing documents received. And so that's a big window there to alert you, hey, you've got a document, you need to take action on this and download it. So I can come out here and click and download whatever's come in late, right? Just download those new documents, it dismisses it out of here. So now, ultimately, I have all, after downloading any missing documents that have been received, I'm still just adding that into the work papers and getting to work on the return. Now, that is going to essentially kind of conclude where we're talking about managing the request. There are some things that we're going to talk about as it relates to delivery of the request now. So for that, or sorry, for the delivery of the return, I should say. Let's flip over here from individual, and I'm going to flip down here to partnership. Now, it's here in partnership that I can see I have two requests that are return in progress, right? Meaning I'm working on these returns. So now let's just assume I am ready to deliver the return to the client. What do I do? Well, I just come in here to return in progress, and I find the request that I'm looking for. So Acme Anvil partnership in this case. I'm going to click on the three little dot actions button here, and I'm going to open up the tax return center. Now, I need an e-signature on this from the client. So that's why I'm putting it here, right? I want them to electronically sign this. And for a business, the one thing I want to point out is that it's a little bit different than what you have with individuals. So I have an individual return open here, and you'll notice that when I'm working with an individual return, I have the option to send for e-sign and publish the e-sign copy to client collaboration. Currently, those do not exist in anything that's non-1040 when you're working with a return. So these are just specific to 1040s, these two checkboxes. So for delivering and requesting an e-signature on a return for anything non-1040, that process begins in the tax return center. And so I can click here to begin the upload. So I'll click upload and browse out to that return. Now, for me, just for demonstration purposes today, I'm just going to attach an 8879 PE for this partnership, but you would be selecting the entire client copy of the return, which would contain the 8879 PE in it, for example, or whatever other signature document. So you would want to give them their whole return, right? The client copy. So you would print that to a PDF when you're done, and then you would attach it. But again, I'm just doing the 8879 PE here for demonstration. So from here, we can see that it shows up down here, and I just want to say that I'm requesting a signature, and I then choose a signer. So Jane was listed as a signer on this partnership, and that's great. I just need to set a due date. We'll say I want this back by Friday, and I'll go ahead and add an e-signature here. And so what I'm doing when I do this is essentially just adding some blocks for where I want the signatures to show up. Now, for you, you would be doing this on the entire client copy of the return wherever you want the signatures. But for me, I only have an 8879 showing up here. So this is where I want it to go. I want it to go right here. So I'll just resize that a little bit. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab a date block as well. Let's make it a little smaller. And I'm just going to paste that, place it right here where I want the date to go. Make it a little bigger. There we go. That's all there is to it. Now I just click save and upload, and just like that, this is off to my client to review and sign. So it's currently listed as unsigned. And if we come over here to, let's close this window, we'll see it's not going to be, now I only have one request here. That's because this request has moved to awaiting return signature. So there's Acme Anvil in awaiting return signature. And now my client is going to begin signing, right? So let's go out to my client's Gmail inbox here. And we can see here, it says your 2023 partnership return is available for review. So great. This would have your firm's logo here, but this will just let them know it's ready to be reviewed and signed. So they'll go out to their hub via this link and they'll log in. Again, this will have your logo there, not mine. But we'll log in here and the client will be able to begin the signing process. So Acme Ample Partnership. Jane would come over here to go to my tasks. We can see here it says your return is complete. Please review and sign it so that we can e-file it. Right? So we'll go to the return and click sign now. This is going to transfer them out to our trusted partner site, which is AssureSign, which handles all of the electronic signing. Do we want to continue? Yes. And then from here, the client would have the opportunity to review the client copy of their return. Now for me, again, I said I just put the 8879 PE. So we're going to just go ahead and click start signing and we'll adopt a signature. And then from here, I am just going to start drawing that signature in. And then I just need to click adopt and I'll apply it. Now down at the very bottom, you can see that signature looks a little small there, but not to worry. It actually prints a little bit bigger. It's just this preview window. It looks kind of small here, so don't panic, but I'll just click submit. And that is going to transfer my client back into Client Collaboration, where now they can see that they have a return that's ready for download. And this will let them download a signed copy of their return whenever they want, right? So they can log into Client Collaboration to get that, that return. On the firm side of things, though, what we'll see here is that if we refresh, it should no longer be in awaiting return signature. So if I refresh, not there, that's because it's now in return signature received. And I have a few ways of going about retrieving this. I could just click this download button to get a signed copy of the return there. Or I could come over here and go into the tax return center from the actions button. And I can see the unsigned, the signed, and that completion certificate. Download those. Or if you're using CCH Axcess Document, you do have the option here to click on the little arrow and upload this to CCH Axcess Document, right? So you just point it to the correct folders for the correct year, all of these things, right? And assign it to your project. You know, you do have the ability to push it to the portal, all of that good stuff, right? Now I'm not going to go through the entire selection of doing that right now, but you do have these options out here to do so. And the moment that you've done so, you would see that this arrow would fill in here, letting you know that that's been completed. All right, so the arrow would no longer be, you know, just an outline, but instead would be dark and filled in, letting you know that that return has been successfully pushed to document. So that is how we go about sending things to get an e-signature on them for business returns. And that kind of takes us to our kind of conclusion here, which is ultimately just some more ways of getting help. The last thing I want to talk about, and you have many different ways. Again, this is another one of those moments where you might want to pause to either take a screenshot of this or to type out these links if there's options for if there's some kind of help that you're needing. You can get connected via live chat, web ticket, phone. You can go out and look at our knowledge base. We do have an extensive video library as well. So just go out there and make use of these help channels if there is help that you need as you're getting going with client collaboration. Now, before I conclude, one final option that I want to present to you is the ability to request custom training. And you can do that through just reaching out to your sales rep. Just ask your sales rep for custom training over client collaboration or any CCH Axcess product. But specifically, if you're looking for client collaboration training, maybe you want just a 1 hour session over, just improving your processes, or maybe you need to bring some new staff up to date, or get them up to speed with client collaboration. So you can always reach out and request custom training, or set it to be 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you want it to be. But just ask your sales rep about custom training options if you are interested in going a little bit further with client collaboration, making your processes better, or truly you just need help. So with all of that said, thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. Please reach out to us if there is anything that we can do for you or help you out with. And thank you for choosing client collaboration and CCH Axcess. Have a great rest of your day.